The night was unusually quiet in our Boston home. Rain tapped softly against the windows while I finished answering emails in my home office. My wife, Emily, thought I'd already gone upstairs to bed. We had been married for 14 years. People admired us. Successful business. Beautiful house. A teenage daughter. A golden retriever that greeted everyone like family. From the outside, we looked perfect. But for the last few months, something about Emily had changed. She smiled less, guarded her phone, started taking mysterious afternoon trips she couldn't quite explain. Whenever I asked, she'd laugh. "You're becoming paranoid, Daniel." Maybe I was. Or maybe my instincts had finally caught up with reality. That night I walked toward the kitchen for a glass of water. As I reached the hallway, I heard Emily's voice coming from the living room. She was whispering, "Finally, just 3 more days, and it'll all be mine." I froze. Every muscle in my body locked. She continued talking on speakerphone. "I've waited years for this." "He still has absolutely no idea." A man's voice answered. "Are you sure he'll sign everything?" Emily laughed. "Oh, Daniel trusts me more than anyone." The words hit harder than a punch. I slowly stepped closer, hidden behind the hallway wall. She couldn't see me. "I'll be free, and richer than I ever imagined." The call ended. Emily looked happier than I'd seen her in months. She poured herself a glass of wine, completely unaware that I had heard every single word. I quietly walked back upstairs. My hands were shaking. Was she talking about our anniversary? A divorce? Or something much darker? I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I opened my laptop, logged into every financial account we shared, and what I discovered at 2:17 a.m. made me realize the nightmare had already begun. At 2:17 a.m., I stared at my laptop in disbelief. Nothing looked obviously wrong at first. Our joint checking account still had money. The business accounts seemed untouched. Then I noticed something I had never paid attention to before. A notification from our attorney's office. Estate planning documents, final review. My stomach tightened. Estate planning. Emily had told me months ago that the paperwork was just a routine update. I had trusted her. Without reading every page, I signed where she pointed. Now I downloaded the files and actually read them. My heart nearly stopped. Several documents had been changed. If I died, nearly everything would pass directly to Emily. That wasn't shocking by itself. We were married. But another clause caught my attention. If I became mentally or physically unable to manage my finances, Emily would gain immediate control over almost every major asset, including my company shares. I leaned back in my chair. Why had she insisted we update these documents so urgently? And why had she whispered, 3 more days? Something wasn't right. The next morning, I acted like nothing had happened. Emily greeted me with her usual smile. "Morning, babe. I made your favorite pancakes." For the first time in 14 years. That smile looked rehearsed. "Thanks," I replied, forcing a grin. She studied my face. "You didn't sleep well." "Just work." She seemed relieved. As she left the kitchen, her phone buzzed on the counter. One message flashed across the screen before it locked. "Everything is ready for Friday." Friday. Exactly 3 days away. Before I could read more, Emily rushed back and grabbed the phone. She smiled nervously. Just my yoga instructor. Yoga. Emily hadn't attended a yoga class in over a year. Instead of driving to the office, I headed downtown. Not to the police. Not to confront Emily. I went straight to the attorney whose name appeared on the documents. I wanted answers. The receptionist looked confused. Mr. Carter, your wife was here yesterday. Yesterday? Did she leave any instructions? The receptionist hesitated. I'm sorry. I don't think I'm supposed to discuss that. At that exact moment, the attorney stepped into the lobby. His smile disappeared when he saw me. Daniel. He looked genuinely surprised. I wasn't expecting you. The way he said it sent a chill through my body. Someone had expected me not to show up. And suddenly, I realized I wasn't the only one keeping secrets anymore. The attorney closed his office door and looked at me in silence. Daniel, before we continue, I need to ask you one question. I nodded. When you signed those estate documents, did you read every page? I felt embarrassed. No, Emily said they were routine updates. He sighed heavily. I was afraid you'd say that. My pulse quickened. What aren't you telling me? He opened a folder and slid several copies across the desk. Your wife requested these revisions. Legally, I couldn't question her intentions because the documents required your signature, and you signed them willingly. I scanned the pages. Every signature was mine. Every change was legally valid. But then he pointed to another document. I refused to file this one. Why? Because it required your personal appearance, and Emily insisted she could bring it back signed later. That raised concerns. What document? He turned it toward me. A transfer agreement. It would have handed over controlling ownership of my company to a newly created investment firm, effective in 3 days. I stared at the company name. I'd never heard of it. Who owns this firm? The attorney shook his head. I couldn't determine that. It was registered through multiple shell companies. A cold feeling settled over me. This wasn't just about a marriage anymore. Someone was trying to take everything I'd spent 20 years building. I left the office and drove to my company's headquarters. Instead of going to my office, I asked the head of IT for a favor. I need a report of every login to our financial systems over the last month. An hour later, he returned with a printed report. Most logins were normal. But one pattern stood out. Late-night access. Repeatedly. From Emily's home office computer. Emily had never worked for my company. She shouldn't have had access at all. Even stranger. Every login occurred after I'd gone to bed. That evening, I acted completely normal. Emily poured us both a glass of wine. Only 2 more days until Friday, she said with a smile. I smiled back. I know. She thought I was counting down to our anniversary weekend. In reality, I was counting down to uncovering the person standing behind her. Because one thing had become painfully clear. Emily wasn't acting alone, and before Friday arrived, I intended to find out exactly who was pulling the strings. Friday was less than 48 hours away. I couldn't afford another mistake. Instead of confronting Emily, I hired a licensed private investigator named Marcus Reed, a former detective with a reputation for uncovering the truth. I don't need guesses, I told him. I need facts. Marcus nodded. Give me 24 hours. The next afternoon, my phone rang. You need to see this, Marcus said. We met in a quiet coffee shop on the edge of downtown. He slid a thick envelope across the table. Inside were photographs. The first showed Emily leaving a luxury hotel. The second showed her sitting across from a man in his early 50s, dressed in an expensive tailored suit. They weren't acting like strangers. They looked familiar, comfortable. The last photo stopped me cold. The man handed Emily a folder. She smiled, then hugged him. Who is he? I asked. Marcus didn't answer immediately. Instead, he placed a printed report in front of me. Name: Victor Langford, CEO of a powerful investment company known for quietly buying struggling businesses. But my company isn't struggling, I said. Marcus looked me straight in the eye. It doesn't have to be. He tapped another page. Your company owns land that several developers have been trying to buy for years. If someone gained control of your shares, they could sell everything for hundreds of millions. Suddenly, everything made sense. This had never been about love. It wasn't even about divorce. It was about my company. My life's work. That evening, Emily came home carrying a small gift bag. She kissed my cheek. Happy early anniversary. Inside the bag was an expensive watch. I thought you'd wear it Friday. I smiled. It's beautiful. She had no idea I'd already seen the photographs. No idea I knew about Victor. And definitely no idea that Marcus had discovered one final detail. Victor Langford wasn't just Emily's business partner. 20 years ago, he had been her fiancé. The room suddenly felt colder. Our marriage had been built on secrets I never knew existed. I looked at Emily across the dinner table and smiled as if everything was normal. Inside, I was already planning my next move. Because on Friday, someone was going to lose everything. But it wasn't going to be me.